Back in India, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi has appealed for calm as violent protests against a new law on illegal migrants enters a fifth day. Now here's Simon Pusey with Around the World in 5.
Good evening from the Channel's newsroom here in London. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has appealed for calm as violent protests against a new law on illegal migrants entered a fifth day. There have been large protests in the capital Delhi as well as Mumbai, Hyderabad and Kolkata. On Sunday, police used tear gas and detained protesters as buses were torched and roads blocked. The new law entitles citizenship to some non-Muslim migrants from 3 Muslim-majority countries. But people are divided on why they have taken to the streets. Some critics say the law is anti-Muslim, while others, especially in border regions, fear large-scale migration. New Zealand has observed a minute of silence to honour the victims of last week's fatal volcanic eruption as police continue efforts to recover 2 bodies. The official death toll from the surprise eruption on White Island, also known by its Maori name of Awakari, stands at 16. 2 people whose bodies are believed to be in the waters around the island are still officially listed as missing. A further 26 people remain in hospitals in New Zealand and Australia, many in critical conditions with severe burn injuries. New Zealand's military forces began a high-risk operation on volcanic White Island on Friday to recover bodies of 8 people killed in the eruption this week, despite warnings that the island was still highly volatile. Riot police and anti-government demonstrators have clashed for a second night in the Lebanese capital Beirut, leaving dozens of people wounded. Protesters threw bottles and fireworks at officers who responded with tear gas and water cannon. Meanwhile, the Interior Minister ordered an inquiry into a crackdown on Saturday that left dozens more wounded. The unrest has been fuelled by anger at the ruling elite over the poor economy and corruption. The protests triggered the resignation of Prime Minister Saad al-Hariri in October, but talks about a new government are deadlocked. Authorities in Australia have issued fresh warnings about a mega blaze after it spread beyond containment lines and razed 20 houses near Sydney. The fire, burning over about 400,000 hectares, has moved further into the Blue Mountains, a popular tourist area which lies west of the city. It is a blow to crews who are already battling over 100 fires and bracing for extreme temperatures this week. The heatwave could bring the nation's hottest day on record, with temperatures potentially exceeding the 50.7 Celsius record set in South Australia in 1960. At least 10 people have died after a fire swept through a fan factory near Bangladesh's capital, the second such accident in less than a week. Firefighters recovered 10 bodies as the fire ripped through the 3-storey factory at Ghazipur on the outskirts of Dhaka. The blaze comes 4 days after a devastating fire at a plastics factory operating without proper government permissions just outside Dhaka killed at least 19 people. Such accidents in factories, many of which operate illegally and without proper fire safety measures, have become increasingly common in Bangladesh. The leaders of the G5 Sahel countries have visited the graves of 71 Niger soldiers killed days earlier in the worst jihadist attack on security forces in Niger in memory. Emma McCarthy reports.
The leaders of the G5 Sahel countries on Sunday visited the graves of 71 Niger soldiers killed near the Mali border in the worst jihadist attack on security forces in Niger in memory. Islamic State claimed to have killed the soldiers in an attack on a remote military camp on Tuesday, as militants with links to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State continue to strengthen their foothold in the region. The G5 Sahel force, backed by France and the United States, consists of Mali, Chad, Niger, Burkina Faso and Mauritania. Presidents of the 5 countries are currently meeting for a session of the group of nations whose multinational military forces are fighting Islamist insurgents. However, nearly 3 years after its launch, the G5 Sahel remains underfunded and hobbled by poor coordination.
Senior officials from South Korea and Japan met in Tokyo on Monday to discuss Tokyo's export restrictions, which are at the centre of a trade dispute between the 2 countries. South Korea's Director General for International Trade Policy, Lee Ho-hyun, and Japan's Director General for Trade Control Department, Yoichi Linda, led the discussions, the first meeting by senior officials since Japan tightened export controls of 3 high-tech materials to South Korea in July and removed the country from its so-called white list of countries with fast-track trade status. And finally, a bat used by legendary baseball player Babe Ruth to hit his 500th home run has been sold at auction for more than $1 million. The bat was sold to an unidentified buyer at an auction in California at the weekend. In the 1940s, Ruth gifted the bat to a friend whose family hid it away for decades. He is regarded as one of the sport's greatest players, with a career that spanned 22 seasons from 1914 to 1935. And that's your international news around the world in 5.
Time now for some sports news. Manchester City FC have drawn Real Madrid in the UEFA Champions League round of 16, while Chelsea will face Bayern in a repeat of the 2012 final. Defending champions Liverpool have been drawn to face Atletico Madrid, while Tottenham will tackle RB Leipzig. The first legs of the last 16 ties will be played on February the 18th to the 19th and February the 25th to the 26th, with the return legs on March the 10th to 11th and March 17th to the 18th. And of course, in the Europa League, Man United have drawn Club Brugge in the last 32, while Arsenal will face Champions League dropouts Olympiacos. Scottish champion Celtic are up against FC Copenhagen. Rangers welcome Sporting Braga, and Wolves will play Spanish side Espanyol. The first legs will take place on Thursday, February the 20th, with the return matches a week later on February the 27th. Back to you, Gemma, for the wrap.
Thanks a lot, Ayotunde. And the main news again. The Inspector General of Police today listed measures to achieve better security architecture. The IGP also promised full implementation of community policing to ensure safety of Nigerians. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Do have a good night.